It's Zoe here with Alex, back with another episode of Football Frenzy. We'll be recapping week 3 and looking a little bit into week 4. So let's jump right into it. As always, we usually start with news. So I'd say the biggest thing that pretty much just happened like an hour ago, Titans Steelers postponed.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I think, 8 people a part of the Titans, I think like 4 of them were players and 4 of them were personnel. They all got tested positive for coronavirus, which is kind of crazy. Honestly, I'm not surprised. This is going to happen eventually.
I'm surprised it's gone as long as it has without something like this happening, especially with you don't track baseball as much as I do, but this season I track baseball a lot because I've become more of a football person, but didn't have that to watch. So I was like, hey, baseball. But especially just because of what happened in baseball and they were trying to be careful, but I've seen football being a lot more careful about everything. Even like, I don't know if you watch Hard Knocks, but if you just saw all the protocols that players go through every single day is ridiculous. And they've been really safe. So part of me was surprised to see that this happened, but part of me was like, oh, it finally happened. Like it was bound to happen at some point. And I'm pretty sure, what was it, last week we found out that one Titan had coronavirus. And
Yeah,
I
I
think from
think
there
so.
we all knew because I remember I was in the car and I saw a report and it was like a Titan comes down with coronavirus and gets tested, but he practiced Friday with all his teammates because his test from Friday, he didn't get back till Friday night. And so I think we kind of all knew this was going to happen. My fear is that it's not going to be contained in the way everyone wants it to be contained. So we were talking about how, before this, you and I were talking about how we know the game's postponed, but there's a chance of them playing it like Monday or Tuesday, and I'm worried that they're going to try to rush people back and someone's going to be asymptomatic, and then the Steelers have it, and then you have 2 clubs who have it, and it just keeps spreading, and that's kind of my fear about it.
Yeah.
But I trust the NFL to handle it. Actually, I don't know if I do that, but I'm going to say I trust the NFL to handle it, and we'll see what happens with that. Obviously, wishing that all the players stay healthy and everything, and I
Yeah, of
know
course.
these guys really want to play, and as fans, we really want to watch. So I think they're going to get it under control, and it looks like they're taking the right steps.
Yeah,
So,
it's just really scary because
yeah,
we don't want the NFL to be canceled again. That'd be awful.
exactly. We had talked about this the past 2 weeks. Like, we've waited so long for this, and if something happens, I know it's kind of going to be crushing to everyone. So, fingers crossed for us, for the players, for everyone, for the sanity of the world. So going to the trade block, I know it's not happening for a little while, but I wanted to talk about some trades with you just because I think there's a couple guys that could totally be on the trade block. So the first one I wanted to start with is a pair of wide receivers. So AJ Green and Odell. I think Odell, pretty much every year we see him on the chopping block. Like, just the way he is, his personality, I've never been a big fan. I think he's ridiculously overrated. I think if the ball's thrown right to him, he drops it. He can make some crazy play, but he can't catch the ball with 2 hands to save his life. So I think personally he gets paid too much and he's not a great asset to a team. So it makes sense to me. It all kind of comes full circle when I see that he may get traded. But we've seen this happen 1,000 times. Even last year, it was like, Odell's going to be traded, and then they stayed with the Browns, and it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah. Honestly, he's just not a good fit for the Browns.
He's not a good fit
They could
anywhere.
definitely yeah, but they were much better without him. Like, I remember 2 years ago, they were really good with
The 0-16
just
season without him.
no, the one after that, the one after that was just Jarvis Landry, and I think that was Baker Mayfield's best season. It was his rookie
They
season.
didn't acquire them. I thought they both came at the same time. Because remember,
No,
they didn't.
nope.
Oh no, because there was the one season without Odell. No, there was.
Yeah,
I remember that.
and I think Odell does not fit on the Browns anymore. I think he should go to a team that has a good quarterback. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
but the thing is that Odell fits on a team where he's the main receiver, and because that's the way his personality is. And personally, I've been surprised that, like, I know him and Jarvis Landry have been friends when they go to college together, or high school or something. They played when they were younger, but I was surprised that they've gotten along as well as they did. I was sure that was going to be a whole other situation, or like 2 players start fighting at training camp, and we see like literally like a boxing video from the middle of training camp of them like knocking each other out. Like, I was just waiting for that, but we never saw it. And so that dynamic in itself, I thought, was interesting because both of them have really strong personalities. But you can tell that Odell isn't getting the production he wants. Even the fact
yeah,
that he left New York when he was with the Giants when he got every target ever. That's one of the reasons the Giants sucked so much, because they just kept going back to him and forcing him the ball when he's not that good a receiver and he can't do everything. But the kind of player he is, and the kind of player that I guess you have to use him as, is a top receiver who gets all the targets, because he's not going to settle for anything else.
Yeah, and Baker Mayfield, like he's still like his skill as like someone who can find all of his options are still like he's still so young, he's so inexperienced, and I think it's just difficult for him because he can't really find all of his options all the time. And Odell Beckham is like one of those guys, like he can get wide open. He can, I mean, I'd say he could catch pretty well. Like I don't know, like I know that
He
you don't
has
agree.
good hands. Like, you know, the players who can make ridiculous plays that no one else can make, but when it comes down to the time when you throw a pass right at him for a first down and he drops it,
Juju
like,
Smith-Schuster.
yeah, but like that's what I'm talking about. Like he has the potential to make these ridiculous plays, but also every time you throw him the ball, you have to hold your breath for a second because you're like, is he going to drop it? Because not because he doesn't
Mhm.
have good hands, but just because I don't know. I haven't really figured it out, but it's just like he's a better receiver with one hand than he is with two, which is weird. You know?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that, but
Yeah.
I think he's just better. I think he's just a better fit with like a veteran quarterback. Like I'd say if they were to trade him for like Emmanuel Sanders and like a second round pick, that would be a good fit for him. Having Drew Brees as your quarterback and then
Yeah.
also being one of the most athletic wide receivers in the league. Imagine that duo, Odell Beckham and Michael Thomas. That'd be just
He wouldn't. The thing is,
crazy.
he wouldn't go there because Michael Thomas, you know, every year sets the target record because he gets targeted more than anyone else in this league. And Odell would probably like quit football. He couldn't. First of all, everyone knows that he's fought everyone coming into the Browns. Everyone thought he was going to be the number one receiver, right? But him and Jarvis have really kind of both been like the number one receiver. You can't pick one out over the other, really. Odell has the bigger name, but in terms of production, it's not that different, right? But whereas you know Michael Thomas is going to be the number one guy, and as fun as it might be to see him, that would be a really scary wide receiving core. But I don't think he would let himself go there. Also, just with the threat of everything else that that Breeze has. Like even with Kamara and stuff, they've been using Kamara a lot out of the backfield just for like little
Yeah.
passes things.
Didn't he have like 150 receiving yards last week?
Something
Something
insane.
like
Like
that.
I think it'd be dangerous to see him there, but he wouldn't get enough usage, and so it wouldn't work. But
Yeah, I agree with that,
um,
honestly.
so him, I think AJ Green could be a big one. I don't know why AJ Green is still in this league. That's a whole nother one. I think him and Julio are like on the same page, but AJ Green is like I can't. They're both just old in my head. They
Yeah.
really both are. They're both old. Except AJ Green gets hurt more, and he's also on the Bengals, so he's more irrelevant. But
Uh,
I think it's time for him to retire. But you know, like that's a whole nother story. So the two of them, and then two running backs who I was looking at were Le'Veon Bell, who it's just because the Jets are awful and the whole Adam Gase thing, which we talked about. Le'Veon, what I know he held out with the Steelers and everything, but how do you go from being a running back that everyone considered pretty much the best running back in the league, remember that time, to a running back that no one even rosters in fantasy? Like that part of it just didn't make that much sense to me. So I think if he can go somewhere else, go to a place that actually has an offensive line a little bit, see what he can do there. Maybe he's just past his prime, maybe he's old, but give him a shot somewhere else in a different scheme. And then Kareem
no,
Hunt, I was talking to you about this before. I'm so high on this kid. I love him so much. I know like his off-field issues, not talking about that, but just being on the field and everything. Stop laughing. His being on the field and everything, I just think he's a really good running back. I've always loved the way he played. He plays really aggressively. And I know even last year, like I picked him up in fantasy when he was still suspended for like wherever, because when he came back, he was in, like, he's my go-to guy for everything. I think he's been really proving himself on the Browns lately, especially with Nick Chubb kind of, I don't know what's happening with him, just not stepping up. So Kareem Hunt's been stepping up and getting it done. And it's going to leave the Browns with a decision because they're either going to decide, I think they're going to stick with Chubb as their main guy, but I think
no, of
Kareem,
course.
yeah, they're going to. But the thing is, Kareem's been way outplaying him. So like Kareem's been getting almost like more touches in some scenarios. Like he gets goal line touches, whereas Nick Chubb doesn't get those anymore because of his ball control issues. So I think that's an interesting one because the way Kareem's playing, they could get ridiculous value out of him. But I don't know if they'll get rid of him because they need him right now.
I think he would fit on a team like a running backless team. Like I think he'd fit on the Rams. He's actually very similar to Todd Gurley. They're both power. elusive backs who can catch the ball, and I think that he would really make a good fit in their system because they've run a system very similar to how he played in Kansas City, which is like a power back and receiving back like type scheme.
Yeah.
So I think that he would really fit there.
I
I
actually
think he
love that. I don't know why that hadn't crossed my mind before, but I think I could totally see him in a Rams uniform. Like in my head right now, like that just makes perfect sense.
yeah, I think that would be a great fit. And I think another good fit would be the Jaguars because they're also pretty much running backless and
Leonard Fournette thing. Oh my god.
yeah. Yeah. Or yeah, I think that would work too because like like he's also a very similar player to Leonard Fournette. Like those three
Yeah,
are very similar. Like they have the same play style.
they
So
are.
I think
Especially Kareem Hunt, if anything, more similar in my head to Leonard Fournette than Todd Gurley, just because he Todd Gurley had something about him that was very shifty, and of course with his knee and everything going on now, he doesn't have it as much. But I remember Todd Gurley being more breaking tackles and more like Ezekiel Elliott like than Kareem Hunt was. Kareem Hunt was like, I'm gonna put my head down and I'm gonna run through you. Like I may break something, but I'm doing it anyway. Whereas I
yeah,
feel like Todd Gurley was more of a I can do that, but I can also hurdle you and get the job done as well. Whereas Leonard Fournette's a put I'm gonna put my head down, I'm gonna run through all of you and I don't care what the hell happens, you know?
yeah.
So
Honestly, if the whole entire Kareem Hunt thing didn't happen, I think the Chiefs would have made the Super Bowl over the Patriots last year because they would have actually had a formidable running back.
I mean, yes and no, because you don't know what could have happened. I think Kareem Hunt used to be ridiculous, right? But also, if he was having those issues, like just with everything, he may have started like going downhill. And one of the reasons I think that he's so good now is because he knows this is his redemption story. You know, like don't call it a comeback, but he knows this is his last shot at anything. And I think that's what's really propelled him to the next level. So, like, no, you don't want that to happen, but his experiences, personally, I think probably is what's propelling him to playing at this level right now, if that makes any sense.
I agree with that.
All right. I know we want to talk about one more news thing and then we'll move on because we've talked about a lot of news. But Foles over Trubisky.
Yeah, your favorite player, Mr. Trubisky, he got benched. He got benched finally. I'm pretty
About
happy about
time.
that. Nick Foles deserves a comeback story. He
Again.
like yeah
Always.
for like the fifth time, but honestly, I'm not surprised. Mr. Trubisky is just garbage. He's just an awful quarterback. He can't make reads. He can't throw to his very good receiver, and I think that he needs to move on to a team that fits his play style better. And the Bears are not like that.
Mitch Trubisky is, I can't even figure it out because he has the potential to be good, but I don't think he has the physicality to do it, but I don't think he has the mental aspect. And before you and I forget who we were talking about, but we were talking about, I think it was T. Higgins, because we were discussing what we were going to say for our fantasy thing or whatever. And we were saying that in a situation where you need, in a situation where you could lose or win the game, right? In a last minute situation, you're going to go to the guy who you know has a high football IQ over the guy who has a lesser football IQ. And I think that's always been one of the issues that's brought Trubisky down because even when, like last year, what he had like 5 touchdowns in that one game or something, or 6 or something. Remember that one insane game he had?
Yeah, I remember
Like
that.
his physicality, sure, he's crazy physical and he can play at those levels. But if you look at the reason why he throws so many interceptions, isn't because he has an awful arm. Like, sure, maybe it's not the best in the league, but it's pretty average. But he uses it in the wrong way because he doesn't have the football IQ to back it up. He can't,
Yeah,
as you
he
were saying,
can't.
he can't make the reads. He can't see the field. When a guy's coming at his face, he's not calm. He doesn't stay in the pocket and make the pass. He kind of just freaks out. It's like, ah! And then, it all like goes downhill from there. And so I don't know what it is because you can't really develop football IQ, but I would say he kind of just needs to. I don't know if it's reps. I don't know how to develop that if you can develop it, but he has the physicality to be a good quarterback in this league. But numerous times, like time and time again, he's shown he just doesn't have the brain to do it.
Yeah,
You know?
and I think people just have the expectation for him to be good is way too high because like obviously they took him with the second pick. He has to be like very good to be taken with the second pick. Like I remember his games at UNC, like he was like very good, but I think people just have such high expectations for him where he's just not that good of a quarterback. So I think that he should try to, I think this is his last year of his contract. Maybe he should search free agency if he can't really find like a new team that would fit his play style. Then I think that he should maybe wait it out another couple years. But I think that Nick Foles really might actually propel this team because he likes to take those underdog teams and bring them to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, once they're
So
in the playoffs, he can't do it with the team. What I don't know how the Bears are 3-0, but I don't know if it's this Bears team that's going to get him there. I don't know if they have the weapons to do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if something goes wrong with Nick Foles and we see Trubisky back in there by the end of the season. I think it's going to be right now. They said in the beginning they wouldn't announce their starter, and then they were like, we all knew it was going to be Trubisky, and then he went and they're 3-0, but he's been kind of a mess. We know Trubisky's been awful. And so they're like, all right, Nick Foles is our starter now. But I think you could come back to it in 3 weeks after the Bears lose a game or two and say, he didn't play well, but we won with Trubisky, so let's go back to him. And it's going to be very flip-flop. I don't know if that says something about the Bears organization themselves, but for Trubisky to be a great quarterback in this league, he just needs to develop his mind. That's it.
yeah. I also just don't understand how is a team who has quarterback issues like 3-0. It just makes no sense. Like
And it's not even like their defense has been ridiculous either. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, Khalil Mack hasn't been the Khalil Mack we're used to seeing.
yeah,
Maybe it's
you're
because he's
completely
been
right.
getting shut down and they double. Like, I know having guys down your line is insane, right? Because you double block him and then other guys are open and can, like, rush and pursue the quarterback. But it's not even like he's been having an MVP season, you know? So
I
it's
think
just,
I think it's just like a very good team effort. I think it's just the rest of the team just playing really well.
it's his presence.
But
Yeah.
it's kind of odd how you can't have you don't have a quarterback, but then you're also 3-0. I
Check
mean,
back in on it in like 3 weeks
yeah,
and we'll see what's going on then.
it'll be 3-3. I mean, granted they had a super easy schedule. Yeah, the
So
Falcons.
we'll see. I want to move on to recapping some of the games this week.
Okay.
But I just wanted to give a quick mention to I'm a sucker for like math and like the history and like the statistics of it. So Patrick Mahomes this weekend hit the fastest QB in history to 10,000 yards, pass yards, which I think we all expected that from him, but that was pretty crazy. I know it's still a sore spot for you right now. That's why we won't be recapping it this week. So I'll move on. I
Yeah,
just wanted to say
please
that.
don't. I don't want to have to go on a full-on rant.
Oh my God, you're just gonna start crying. It's fine. We're gonna
No.
move on. Okay.
No, that'd be awful.
Recapping games. Let's start off with the Bengals-Eagles game. I never thought that I would be talking about a Bengals-Eagles game, but yet here I am. Basically the definition of bad mediocrity is the only way I can describe this game, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think Joe Burrow had a good game for a rookie. He had a good game for a rookie,
For a
but not
Bengals
for
quarterback, yeah.
yeah. I think he would have done. Did much better than Andy Dalton would have done. I think it was more on the Eagles because the Eagles are just so bad, and I think they should bench Carson Wentz, in my honest opinion,
I agree.
because he had a good season. He brought them to the Super Bowl, and then tore his ACL. So I think that
Wishing
it's a
Nick Foles
bold
was still
prediction.
there right now.
Oh
Just
yeah,
saying, the Eagles are
definitely.
probably wishing they still had Nick Foles.
Oh yeah, but bold prediction. I think that they should bench if he doesn't play up to his expectations. I'd say by week 6 they'd have him benched for Jalen Hurts because Jalen Hurts is really good.
Jalen Hurts is really good. I remember when they took him, I was like, let's go. But okay, so my thoughts on the game wasn't too much. I just thought it was less of a tie and it was more of I guess the way the game went, I would almost consider it a win for the Bengals, but even more I would just consider it a loss for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
I get that.
the Eagles with Carson Wentz and everything that happened, I feel like they beat themselves more than anything. The game wasn't a good game. Sure, it tied, so it was exciting because the score was close, but it wasn't one of those games where you sit down and you're like, this is going to be such a good game. I'm going to see really good football today. I'm going to see great plays and I'm going to see crazy things happen. No, you're just watching. You're like, oh, it's a close game. Wow, that's exciting. But it's also, Joe Burrow and Carson Wentz. So I don't know how exciting it can get. But Carson Wentz just I don't know what's going on with him because we've seen MVP flashes out of him. Maybe he's afraid to get hurt again because he's had his share of injury concerns, but there's definitely something off with him. He's been making really bad decisions. That's my main thing when I'm looking at a quarterback, especially, what am I, like a scouter now? But like, when your team, so for like you, the Ravens, when you look into who they might be drafting, and for me, one of the main things I look at is sometimes I'll watch like highlight reels because I'm just insane. And I sit there and watch them. And I always look for less of the ability, obviously that's there, but more of the decision making of the quarterback. So if you see the whole field and you see one guy running this route and one guy running this route, and there's a guy in the middle, and you throw it to the guy who's going over here instead of the guy who already broke out, like it's just field awareness in that sense. And Carson Wentz, the year that he did get hurt but still went to the playoffs, he had good field awareness. And that also can come down to play calling. And I know it has so many factors, but I didn't see that aspect out of him this weekend. I haven't seen that from him in a long time. And I don't know what it comes down to, but without that, Carson Wentz isn't, not that he ever was an MVP candidate, but when he's played and had flashes of it, he's not that Carson Wentz.
I think it's also a lack of wide receivers because, they lost. I think isn't Alshon Jeffrey hurt or something like that? I think he's hurt.
We can't keep track of injuries after last week. I have no idea.
They have they lost Nelson Aguilar, which should have been a good thing, but obviously it's not because now they have less receivers. But yeah, I think it's also just a lack of receivers. Jalen Rager's hurt now, so he has to throw like
lack of receivers, but you have two tight ends who do everything. And if you can't work that also just in that comes down to field awareness, right? Because if you have Goddard, how do you say it? I think it's Goddard, right?
Dallas Goddard, yeah.
And if you have Goddard and Ertz, right? Two of these ridiculous guys. I've never been so high up on Ertz, but I've actually started to really like him recently. I had a bad experience with him once in fantasy, so we don't talk about him anymore. But Ertz he's this huge monster in the field. But the problem is that sometimes Ertz will be kind of open and Goddard will be open. And Carson Wentz will force the ball to Ertz for no reason when Goddard is right there. And that's kind of the issue I see. It's that field awareness of what's going on. Because sure, like Ertz might be partially open, but Goddard's on the other side of the field going to score a touchdown, And he needs to be confident all around in his receivers. And he just has to be aware, Like it comes down to not knowing who you're going to throw to before the pass. Sure, sometimes you have a design play to a hot route, but if it's not a hot route, you shouldn't really know who you're going to. You can be between two or three receivers, but don't be like, okay, I know I'm going to Zach, Zach Ertz this play. Like, it's happening, whatever, even if he's covered, like, I'm going to him, like, no matter what. You can't have that mindset, and I see that mindset a lot out of Carson Wentz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely not a good thing, and I think he just needs to work on his, like, field awareness. He needs to work on hitting other receivers than just his tight ends, because obviously that doesn't work all the time, so...
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, and then one more recap. I know we're moving slow today. Seahawks Cowboys. This was quite the game. I don't think too many people saw this coming. Seahawks, personally, I expected the Seahawks to blow the Cowboys out of the water, but it went a little differently than anyone would have imagined.
Yeah, Russell Wilson kind of popped off 5 touchdowns. Kind of nuts. DK Metcalf got me a lot of fantasy points, and he threw to Tyler Lockett a lot. And I think he just found he really just found his targets. I think it's just him trying to claim that MVP because he's been such an MVP dark horse, and now he's finally up there. And I think he'll win it this season. But it was just a very crazy game overall. Zeke did not play well, which made me kind of sad. And yeah, it was just a really good game overall.
I thought at one point in that fourth quarter when the Cowboys kicked that field goal, I genuinely thought the game was over. And then it wasn't, of course. But it was definitely – I thought it was interesting to see Russell Wilson playing at that level and the Seahawks still almost lose that game.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was almost like a malfunction of their defense a little bit, but their defense didn't necessarily play badly because their offense was insane. But it was like – it was just a lot. No one really expected that. And I think, I guess the question is, if you're the Seahawks, Are you worried because your quarterback had this ridiculous performance and you only won by a touchdown in like the last couple minutes of the fourth quarter?
Um, Honestly, I'm not sure. Um, I think it was just a battle between two good teams, and I don't think there's really nothing to be concerned about.
I mean, that's considering the Cowboys a good team.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that because they're not a good team. I mean, maybe they're better than last year with Mike McCarthy and Jason Garrett gone. Mike
Jason Garrett was the
McCarthy,
big one.
yeah,
Big one.
Mike McCarthy worked with Aaron Rodgers, and now he's with Dak Prescott, so maybe he can help him develop. But honestly, I think it was just a matter of the Cowboys escaping the run, which they have Zeke for, and he threw 57 times, which is if you're a quarterback and you're throwing more than 45 times, then clearly there's a problem.
Yeah. I mean, but it's worked for Russell Wilson. If you go back to stats for a minute, he has the record right now. He has 14 passing touchdowns in the first 3 weeks. That's pretty crazy. So
Yeah, but they also don't have a great running back like Zeke. Like Zeke is probably a top 5 running back, and
easy.
if you're not using him, then you're probably gonna end up losing.
That's the key to the Cowboys' success. It's always been the run game. It's
And
always
they
been
always
their
escape
offensive
it in there.
line, and
Yeah.
whoever the hell they can play anyone back there, and they'll still run forever just because of that offensive line. So
Yeah, and if they escape it, then they're just gonna end up losing.
yeah, exactly. So if you're the Cowboys, obviously you got other things going on. Especially Mike McCarthy loves the short hot route things and everything, as we've seen with Aaron, but. He had Aaron Jones in Green Bay. Aaron Jones had a monster year last year. He's had some big years. You just got to start doing that with Zeke. And I think the Cowboys actually, may I say it, might actually be considered a good team, like you said. But,
Maybe.
I don't know. All right. So that's the end of week 3. Let's go to week 4 for a minute. So the week coming up now, the first game I wanted to talk about was the Chiefs-Pats game. Because if we had seen this on the schedule last year, I would have been like, this would have been better than it would have been just as good as the Chiefs-Ravens game, right? But this year, I think it's a little different. I think it's still an interesting game, but I think if you had asked me last year, I would have said it's up in the air about who wins. I probably would have favored the Chiefs, but this game, I don't think there's a question about who wins. I think you take Chiefs any day. You bet on the Chiefs. I don't think that's a question at all. But I definitely still think it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, it'll definitely still be a good game. It's two really good teams who are probably going to end up winning their divisions. And it's just going to be classic. I think it's the first time that Mahomes is seeing Cam Newton in
definitely
a game.
In a Patriots uniform. Did they not play when – I feel like they must have played when Cam was on the Panthers.
I don't know. I think Cam was hurt. Cam's been hurt for the past 2 years, so I'm not sure. But I think it's just going to be a really good game. It's going to be fun to watch. You're going to see these two really good offenses, and Patriots have a pretty good defense.
They do. The Courtney twins. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good game. It's just going to be fun to see. I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of Mahomes and his offense go up against the Pats defense. I don't think it's going to be much of a surprise that Mahomes is going to end up steamrolling over them, but I think you're going to see some interesting plays, and you're definitely going to have to see a higher level of play out of Mahomes, just in terms of what he does with the ball, because normally he just flings the ball up as hard as he can throw it and as far as he can throw it, and Tyreek Hill magically appears under the ball, and yay, touchdown. But I don't know if you get that this week, because I think it's a little different there. Not too different, but you definitely have some players who aren't going to let that happen on the Patriots side of the ball.
Oh yeah, especially like Gilmore and the McCourty twins. They have a really good secondary, so
exactly. So
it wouldn't be such a high-flying game.
So it doesn't mean Mahomes isn't going to have a lot of time, because that pass rush has been up and down, but that secondary is really dangerous, and I don't know if it's going to mean less deep passes, but I definitely think it's going to be harder for Mahomes, and we're going to see. That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited for this game. Is it's just going to be a higher level of football in general.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one. This is a little out of the ordinary for us. We were just talking about the Patriots, so why don't we go to the Buccaneers? But Chargers, Buccaneers. I know normally you'd be like, why are you talking about this? Are you deranged? But I'm really excited to see Justin Herbert play. I love this guy so much, and
Mhm.
him with Keenan Allen, I could literally watch them for hours.
They were really good last week. He really found Keenan Allen as a really reliable target. He's always been a reliable target, even to Phillip Rivers. And I think it's just gonna be a really good game overall because you have Tom Brady, who has obviously a very good offense,
Mhm.
and then you also have the Chargers, who have a new youthful offense. So I think it's just gonna be a really good game. It's gonna
Exactly.
be very,
Battle of the
very
New
high
York Field,
flying. Yeah.
right? Like you have, I mean, I guess some of those players are younger, but on the Buccaneers, they're starting to get up there a little bit, and you see like the new side of football emerging a little bit with Justin Herbert
Mhm.
and them.
Yeah. It's
Um,
gonna be a very high flying game.
yes,
Lots of deep passes.
it's going to be a lot of offense. I think. How do you think not having Chris Godwin, who scored his first touchdown of the season last week, is going to affect Brady?
I don't think it's a problem. They have a really deep, they have really deep receivers, and they also have Mike Evans, who's really good. So
Yeah.
I don't think it'll hurt him too much. I think it'll help him to stop forcing the ball downfield because the Buccaneers like their four verts. So I think it'll just stop them from forcing the ball down the field so much. And honestly, I think the Buccaneers will end up winning.
Buccaneers. I think just in terms of veteran presence and being used to what's going on, especially if it's a close game, I think you pick the Buccaneers too for that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think it's definitely going to be high flying. We'll see what happens. The
Mm-hmm.
Buccaneers, in my opinion, their keys to success is getting their tight ends involved. We talked about this for maybe 10 minutes before we even got on Zoom, but we were saying how their tight end room is so ridiculously stacked. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
what OJ Howard, Cameron Brate, and Gronk. Like, it
Yeah, it's
doesn't,
kind of crazy.
it's how do you have those three guys on a team? By themselves, those guys can be powerhouses. And
I mean, to be fair, they're not using Gronk as a receiving tight end. They're using him as a basically only blocking tight end. I think he has
okay,
four
but
receptions
still,
the whole entire year. Yeah,
still
it's
in the red
still
zone, in the red zone,
yeah.
there's no way you don't just put him up in the middle and be like, "Hey, Gronk, by the way, catch this." Like, sure, in the middle of the field, but when they're in the red zone, which sometimes they've been having those longer plays, as you mentioned with the four verticals, right? So you mentioned that play where they all go downfield, and so they haven't needed as much of the red zone. But I think this game they're going to need more red zone offense, especially without Chris Godwin. It's going to be shorter gains instead of 25-yard gains at a time. It's going to be like 11-yard gains or something like that.
Mhm.
I mean, Mike Evans can still go ridiculously deep, you know that,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah, he definitely can.
the key is going to be them in the red zone. I think you're going to go to Gronk, but you just need to get your tight ends involved. Whether it's blocking or catching, I don't really care. But if you get your tight ends involved in both those aspects of the game, I think they pretty much have it locked down.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. My favorite part, let's go. Fantasy pickups. Um,
Um,
you start off with this one because you were excited for this one this week.
oh yeah. I picked. Who did I pick again?
Hunter Renfro.
Yeah, Hunter Renfro. So he's a good receiver. He's a pretty good team. He's been hitting his. He's been really getting targeted a lot more. He was good in college, and I think this year he'll kind of break out in on a Raiders team who's looking like it's pretty rejuvenated because of their location move. So he had a really good week last week. What did he have, like 80 yards and a touchdown, and I think he's just like a dark horse fantasy player who can get you a lot of points.
I think he was a dark horse, especially before some of the injuries, but now with Henry Ruggs hurt, and then especially last week, he had such a big week because Darren Waller was completely covered the whole
Yeah.
game. So
Yeah, it's
he
crazy.
actually ended up leading the team in catches, targets, and yards, which is something I don't think anyone would have expected of him. So if Henry Ruggs, I don't know the severity of his injury, I forget, but if he stays out, and even when he comes back, I think Hunter Renfro has proved himself a little bit. He had a couple iffy plays, if I remember correctly. There were some where his head didn't seem to be in it, but he definitely has the capacity to be a really good receiver in this league, and I think you're going to see him be worked more, especially when Darren Waller's obviously your wide receiver one there, so he's going to have guys swarming him all day.
Yeah, he's also he's fast,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in the slot, he's very good slot receiver. So he gets open quite a bit. So I think he's just gonna have good chemistry with Derek Carr and start getting a lot of fantasy points. So Pick him up.
Him paired with Josh Jacobs is a little scary. I would say he's definitely a good guy to have on the bench because as the season goes on, we could totally see him break out, even when Henry Ruggs gets back.
I just picked him up, so
Congrats.
good bench player.
A guy I just picked up, Alan Lazard. Not the biggest Packers person, but I couldn't not pick this guy up. He had the most insane week. He has been getting targets from Aaron Rodgers. I was scared because I thought Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to throw to him this year just because of all the other targets he has. But if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, the fact that Devontae Adams is an injury machine, I've said this once, I'll say it again, I will keep saying this for as long as this dude is in the league. He is a freaking injury machine, hurt right now at the moment, will come back, will probably be hurt again the next game, won't even make it through the game he's in right now. That's a whole mess. So I think without him on the field, you need a guy who you can go to for those long passes or even short ones, but Aaron Rodgers has loved to go to Lazard with the long ball. He sends him 50 yards downfield. Hey, buddy, catch. And, it's touchdown every time. So I think he's a good guy who has – I don't know what his floor is. I haven't quite figured it out. With Devontae Adams out, I think he has a higher floor than he does with Devontae Adams back. But even when 100%. Devontae Adams is back, he'll be out again in like a quarter. So I think he's a good guy to especially have a really good stash for your bench if you're looking to strengthen your wide receiver core a little bit in case we've seen like so many injuries happen lately. I definitely think he's just a good stash to have there. And Aaron Rodgers also at quarterback. Any guy who has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback is going to be dangerous. So,
yeah, 100%. He's a quick, speedy. He can play in the slot, and I think he's going to be a good pickup. So I'd pick him up too.
I agree. Okay. So red zone. So let's go over last week's red zone. So you crushed me, by the way.
I did very good.
The Ravens game went a lot different than I thought it was going to go. I thought it was going to be a good game, but I didn't expect it to go like it did. You're welcome. I know this makes you so happy to talk about. So if we're talking about our first question was, who will throw more touchdowns, Lamar or Mahomes? So you said Mahomes going against your guy Lamar, and you.
I wasn't surprised. Right. I was not surprised.
You picked right. Mahomes went off. What did he throw? Like 5 touchdowns or something?
I think he had 4 and ran in for 1. So.
Okay, so same thing, 4 passes, whatever.
More than 1. Definitely more than 1.
Yeah. And Lamar did not have a day. The Ravens did not have a day. It was a little bit of an issue for them.
Don't talk about it.
By that second possession, we all knew it was going downhill. But so you got that
bad
point
play
there.
calling.
What?
I could go off about that game, but I don't think you want to hear me rant.
A different time. I'll hear it. I won't subject everyone else to it.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. The next one. Who's gonna have more turnovers? The Rams or Bills defense? And then, of course, they both, just to spite us, they both got the same number. I think they each had 2, if I recall correctly. So I just gave us both the point for that because who couldn't use more points? Also, if I didn't get the point for that, I would have gotten no points this week. So I needed some form of self-esteem. And then the last one is, will Kyler run for 2 or more touchdowns versus the Lions? I said more just because I don't believe in the Lions defense, but somehow they got 3 turnovers. So he didn't really have a chance to run all over them as much. I think if he had, they would have won, not going to lie. But, that's a whole other story. The Lions won, we're accepting the win. But you said less.
Pretty good upset.
Yeah, pretty good upset. You said less, and I said more. So you got that point. So, you kind of crushed me this week, 3-1. But, there's always next week.
Am I winning overall? I think I'm winning overall.
I think you are, because last week we tied 1-1, so it's like 4-2. It's fine. I'll come back. Don't call it a comeback. Okay. First question this week. Lamar, under or over 3 touchdowns?
I'd say over. I know. I said he only got 1 last week, but he's playing a beat up Washington team, and I say that he really picks himself up and plays really well.
I hate agreeing with you because I know that if either we're both going to get a point and the only way I'm going to win, like, in the end is if I disagree, but I don't think I can disagree with this one. I think I got to go. I'm pretty sure I saw something that Chase Young wasn't playing.
Yeah, he's out this week, which
so that takes pressure off
very
Lamar
good
anyway.
Oh, and
Lamar versus anyone but the Chiefs is ridiculous. I think he's what
Yeah.
0-3 in the last 3 times he's played the Chiefs, just because.
And he's 21-1 against literally everybody else.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So I think you're gonna see him go back to the Lamar we know, the Lamar we see
the
all the time.
MVP,
Lamar.
the MVP Lamar.
I don't even think it's a question, to be honest. I know the Chiefs probably pushed him down a little bit, but he's going to jump right back up, and we'll see. We'll probably see a rematch, I would guess, of Chiefs Ravens in the playoffs. So
AFC Championship.
yeah, there you go.
Maybe.
So I think he's going to be perfectly fine. So we both say over. All right, next question. Does the Seahawks D get 2 or more takeaways? They're playing the Dolphins, who
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm saying yes because Ryan Fitzpatrick, they're playing the Dolphins?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Okay, you're right. Never mind. I'm looking at the wrong week. I'm looking at week 5.
You're still having an issue over the Ravens.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah. Yeah, but Ryan Fitzpatrick really enjoys his interceptions. That's why his nickname is Ryan Fitzception. So he's gonna throw quite a few picks. Maybe he'll get benched for Tua. You never know. That would make me happy.
I love Tua.
He's a
I'm
great
gonna
player.
say, so you're saying more. I'm actually gonna say less, just because of the reason that, just because the Cowboys were able to put up 31 points against the Seahawks did not seem right to me, and I know they did it by running but also passing. We mentioned all the passing, and just I don't know what's off. They're probably gonna come back and fix it, and I'm gonna be totally wrong, but I'm just gonna go under because their offense is going to be good, but I think their defense has been slacking a little bit, especially I say slacking based on what we're used to, the Seahawks defense being completely locked down and ridiculous. And so obviously them not playing at that level is like still them being as good as any other defense in the league. But I don't know if you see 2 touchdowns out of them. Plus Fitzpatrick is coming off a really good week. And sometimes he's awful and throws interceptions, but sometimes he plays like ridiculously well for no reason.
Yeah, he ruined their tank last year.
Exactly. So I don't really understand what it was, but I think if you see Fitzpatrick have a day like that, or even play at the same level he did last week, then I don't know if you're going to see 2 takeaways from the Seahawks.
Maybe.
And then the last question. So I know you weren't too happy with this one because I came up with it, but who gets more rushing yards, the Steelers or the Titans?
Titans. Derrick Henry is too good. He's unstoppable.
You laughed at me when I made this question. I would like to announce I was laughed at when I made this question because
I hate
this
the Steelers.
man right here doesn't believe in James Conner. And
I hate the Steelers.
I know you hate it, but that's bias. I think Derrick Henry, I love Derrick Henry more than everyone. I've been watching him since the Heisman season, since Alabama. He's been on my radar forever. But the thing is, the Steelers line has been playing really well, right? Their defensive line. And their defense, I think they're prepared for Derrick Henry. And I know Derrick Henry can just run through everyone and be ridiculously good. But I also think you're counting out James Conner a little bit too much. I know he's had his issues and everything, but if he's healthy and guns blazing and ready to go, I think he could totally run all over the Titans. And sure, there's always the potential for Derrick Henry to break out and have a massive game, but there's also the potential for James Conner to break out and have a massive game.
Yeah, I could see that because, if James Conner really stays healthy. And then they also have a pretty deep running core. They have Benny Snell. And
exactly.
They have
if James Conner goes down, you take Benny Snell out, who hasn't really gotten touches in 2 weeks, but the last time he got touches, he ran for like 130 yards or something.
Yeah, that was good.
So I'm taking Steelers. You're taking Titans. I don't know when that game's going to be played, but when it eventually gets played, we'll check back and see how that went. But that about wraps it up for us today. On to week 4. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.